One of my favorite governors in the history of politics since I've been doing politics, Governor Mike Dunleavy. Welcome to my show. Excited to have you on.
It's great to be on, John. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's fun. It's fun to sit back and see some of the cool things that you've done over the years. I think one of the things that is really intriguing to me is you have a really great relationship with President Trump. And I think that that does really well for the state of Alaska. Can you talk to me a little bit about why that's been so important for you and maybe some of the key differences is of like having the Joe Biden in and then getting Trump back into office has been good for Alaska?
So obviously, I support President Trump, and there's clear reasons for that. He's been fantastic for Alaska. Trump 1.0, he began the process of creating all kinds of opportunities for Alaska. ANWR, reopening the Tongass National Forest, giving us a presidential permit to have a railroad go across the border with Canada. He really worked on the King Cove Road. He was very interested in giving Alaska the opportunities that we had hoped we had gotten at statehood when we became a state. And so there's been a lot of other administrations, mostly Democrat, but some Republicans too, that have either ignored Alaska or have actually worked against Alaska. President Trump has done the exact opposite. And as a resource state, as a state that came into the Union, having to develop its resources in order to pay for itself, President Trump was fantastic. That's 1.0. 2.0 is even better. He issued an executive order for the state of Alaska. We're the only state that's got an executive order. He mentioned our gas line project in his State of the Union speech. The list goes on, and he's instructed his staff, his secretaries and others to work directly with Alaska, to work with us to get some of these things across the finish line. Reopened ANWR, is reopening the Tongass, got the King Cove Road land title situation straightened out so they can get a road. NPRA is going to be back online. Ambler Road, the LNG pipeline, he's behind 100%. All for what I think are very good reasons for the state of Alaska. Again, opportunities to help the state, help the country, and help our Asian allies.
And do you think, I mean, the obvious answer to me is yes, but having a friendship with Trump is helpful to Alaska?
Yeah, John, there's a thing that's not often spoken about in politics, and I term it the cringe factor, meaning two politicians are walking down a hall or a street and they see each other. Do they cringe when they see each other or do they not? For me, there's no cringe with President Trump. We get along. We like each other. I really think what he's doing is terrific for Alaska. He sees what we're doing up here is also in line with what his vision is for America. And so we get along. And it is important because you've developed, I think, a level of trust. The president's the most powerful human being in the universe right now. And so being able to have a conversation with him, I'll give you an example. And it's phenomenal. We were outside the Alaska Airlines Center when the individuals were coming in from Typhoon Halang, from the devastated villages out in the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And I was standing in front of the Alaska Airlines Center, and I sent the president on my phone, I texted him a picture. And it was about 9 o'clock our time. So East Coast, he's about 1 o'clock in the morning. He texts right back. He goes, tell the people of Alaska that I love them, care about them, and we're going to help them. I mean, how often does that happen, right? And so I was on a plane getting ready to leave about a week or two later. It was actually Doug Burgum, the Department of Interior. His phone number came up on my phone. I couldn't get to the phone in time before we lost connection. So when I landed, I listened to the phone, and it was Doug's number, but it was the president saying, hey, congratulations, Mike. We got the Ambler Road going, and it's going to be great things for Alaska. So appreciate the president, appreciates what he's doing for Alaska. Look at John, we're only 740,000 people. We're the size of a county at the top of the world. We only have 3 electoral votes. We're not a Texas or California, yet he gives us a lot of attention. And so for that, I'm grateful.
That's pretty awesome. Let's talk a little bit about this Alaska Day that happened. Doug was there. I think both the senators, Nick Bayich, they signed this, document that was going to basically unleash Alaska's energy. We've heard that, we've seen those rumblings in the paper before, and you've kind of been the governor to not talk about it unless something's actually happening, which I really appreciate. Do you think something is actually happening with, let's say, specifically LNG or some of these other projects?
Yeah. So LNG, absolutely, and I'll give you some reasons why I believe it's moving. Right, I'm not going to do backflips, which would be dangerous on any day, but for me to do a backflip. But I'm not going to do backflips until the pipe is on the ground and we get a first weld. But let me tell you where we're at. So Baker Hughes, which is a huge international firm that deals with things such as lead natural gas pipelines and LNG, they signed on to actually start the process of putting together the components for things like compressors and so forth. They're
Wow.
also interested, I believe, in being an investor in this project. They would never do that if they thought that this didn't have a pretty good chance. And so, what people need to watch is December. Glenn Farn, who's the private concern that is running the pipeline process and is going to be the major dealer in this whole thing, they're going to finish up their feed process. And what feed is, front end engineering and design. It's really for the pipe. It's an update. It's an updated cost. Last cost update was done in 2015. It's now 2025, 26. We're going to be going into. So they got to update the cost of that pipe. They're feeling really good about where they're at now. They've had contractors look at the pipe. They've had contractors on the pipeline right away, actually physically going down from Prudhoe all the way down to the Kiski. Engineers looking at it, and they feel that their study in the end in December will come out that the pipe is coming in within a price range that's going to make things economical. When that happens, January is when they'll announce FID, economic FID, to be able to start to purchase pipe. And so they believe that everything works out, everything's going the way it should go. January, they'll announce they're going to purchase pipe, and we should have pipe on the ground in August of 26, which means we're going to have a pipeline. So what those two time periods, December and January, are absolutely crucial and will tell us a whole lot about the future of this pipeline.
That's huge. I look back and I look at Governor Walker's strategy philosophy and your strategy philosophy com- really completely different philosophies. I think under Walker, it's more state-led, state-ran. You had countries in there coming in and running the man camps. Yours is private-led, state still involved, but more private-led. Do you think that there is having the state kind of back out of it was a good choice, and being the lead person and owning the whole thing?
That's a great question, right? And I'm not one of those politicians that takes credit for things that I have not been part of, and oftentimes I'm criticized by my supporters for not taking enough credit. But I'll say this: this may shock people. A lot of governors have tried to push this pipeline, right? And they all wanted a pipeline for Alaska, which I appreciate. I mean, it goes back decades and decades and decades. Frank Murkowski, Sarah Palin, Sean Parnell, and Governor Walker. Now, Governor Walker's approach. And you got to understand all of these things in these moments of time. It's a different time period as to what's happening internationally too. At the time we're trying to move this gas line, but I give all the governors a lot of credit. I give Governor Walker credit for trying to move the pipeline in the manner that he did, help bring attention to it, especially with our Asian allies and with China, which is not necessarily an ally of America, but nonetheless. So what's the point? It's good to know that we've had a number of administrations trying to get this across the finish line. Things are different now. The environment worldwide is different. Gas with regard to AI, gas with regard to electrification of the world, just a lot of gas being used in a whole host of areas, both for economic reasons and geopolitical reasons. So long story short, I thought the approach that we took was the best approach because it's got to be economical. And who's going to determine if it's economical is our private enterprise. It's private enterprise. And so we were able to do that. And eventually we had a conversation with Glenn Farn about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And they became very interested in this process by breaking the concept up into three parts: the pipeline, the liquefaction export plant, and the gas conditioning plant on the slope. And everything seems to be working right now. Again, crossing my fingers. I'm not going to have a party or parade until
The pipe's
the
ordered.
pipe is ordered and we start to weld that up, John. But things are looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, my good friend Charlie Pierce always tells me don't get excited till they start ordering the pipe. So
Yes.
I think that's a good philosophy to take. Let's pivot now. You just did a Charlie Kirk Day, I believe. You signed it into fruition for the state of Alaska. Talk to me a little bit about what that means to you. I know what it means to me, but I think it's important that his legacy not be forgotten. He was the guy that showed up to college campuses and let anybody debate him regardless of how crazy they were. And I think, man, it's a lost art. And I think I'd hate to see that be even more lost because he was tragically murdered. So talk to me a little bit about Charlie Kirk Day for Alaska.
Yeah, so I mean, you've had a number of folks in history here in America, across the world, but here specifically in America. I mean, I'll start in the '60s with, even people like Malcolm X, for example, was assassinated in New York City because of his views on certain things. And then, of course, our President Kennedy, was assassinated. Martin Luther King, for similar reasons, and Charlie Kirk. The thing about Charlie Kirk, I think Charlie Kirk's assassination, in some respects, bothered me than other assassinations. They're all terrible. It's an awful way for anyone to express their dislike or disagreement with somebody by doing the ultimate act of crossing that line and pulling a trigger. Charlie Kirk, in my opinion, he certainly, his politics certainly laid on the right side of the spectrum, as we would say. But I don't think anyone could argue with him or anyone that supported Charlie Kirk in terms of the First Amendment. You got to be able to have a conversation. And he often said this: if you don't have a conversation, this is when trouble happens. And ironically, he was killed for that very reason. And the concept of a martyr is somebody that dies for a cause. In essence, Charlie died for the First Amendment. We may not agree with him. Some people in America may not agree with his positions on things like transgender folks, the way to run government, politics, etc. But nonetheless, he was a young man, died at in prime of his life. He was married, he had kids, but he died for a reason I think every single American should support. We don't have the First Amendment, and that's why, John, it's the first. It's not the fourth. It's not the eighth. It's number one that differentiates America from the rest of the world. And this, we're going to have a celebration here in July, a 250-year birthday party for America. But that's the key that separated us, the ability for any individual to express their opinion. This is what I believe God meant for people to do, to be able to talk freely. Charlie Kirk promoted that, especially in an environment of a lot of political vitriol. In real time, we watched the poor man get assassinated, and so I felt it was fitting for us to remember his birthday, which is October 14th, I believe. And I did do a proclamation calling that Charlie Kirk Day. Really, it's First Amendment Day, is what it is. It's to remind us that that amendment separates us from history, separates us from all the other countries on the face of the earth.
So, Governor, my last question to you is this: what keeps you grounded? Because I think you are a little different than most politicians I've met. A lot of politicians, they like to talk about themselves and they like to think about themselves. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's not ever been your MO. You seem to not really care if you make a headline or don't make a headline. And in my opinion, I've gotten to know you a little bit, and you're a kind person. I often tell the story about how Governor Dunleavy gave my wife and I a personal tour of the governor's mansion for like 30 minutes, like no security, no staff, just gave us a tour. And they're like, that just blows people away. And that's just probably how you normally operate. So what keeps you grounded in life in general, not just being the governor, but in life? What has kept you grounded?
That's a great question. I don't think everyone, I can't recall anyone ever asking that question, but, I didn't run for governor to pat myself on the back. I'm pretty happy with who I am and have been my entire life. It's not like I've been in search of trying to give my life meaning. I had great parents. They were FDR Democrats, and they were very good parents. They always instilled in the four boys. I had three brothers that you should always be looking out for the little guy, and that's not a pun because I'm 6'7", but it's everyone should have opportunity, and whatever you do in life, and if you're going to choose public service, is to help provide that opportunity. This isn't about running for governor to be someone. I mean, it's interesting, John. We're going to have a lot of folks run for governor because I'm terming out, and what people should do is ask those people what their mission is. And if they look at them like it's a deer in the headlights moment, maybe they don't have a mission. But my mission has always been to try and create opportunities for Alaskans. I am certainly on the right side of the spectrum because I think that philosophy, I think, honors the individual. But I would say what keeps me grounded is that I grew up the son of a a mother who was the daughter of immigrants, and I think she made the most, maybe $16,000 a year as a secretary, and a mailman, my father, who maybe made 34, maybe $35,000 as a mailman, and that everyone matters, and that don't get too full of yourself because you could be disappointed and karma comes around. So I would say, long story short, I like people, love Alaskans, love Alaska, and in the end, it's what I can create in terms of regulation or legislature with the legislature to help Alaska and help people. And so I don't look in the mirror every day and say, you're the most amazing person that ever lived. I get up in the morning and I get ready to tackle problems, and I just enjoy dealing with problems. So I don't know if that answered the question. It's just you just can't be fully yourself in these jobs because you're only here for a certain amount of time, and this is a unique republic we have here in America.
Well, I appreciate your time, Governor. Welcome back anytime, and we wish you well. And we hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.